Amazing single mom saves starving elder. Then, 5 hours later, the CEO reveals, "That's my dad." On a frigid winter night, sparks of snowflakes twirled like dancers in the dim light of the street lamps, casting an eerie glow around Angela. The icy air churned in her lungs as she clutched her jacket tighter around herself, biting back the wave of desperation she felt behind the walls she built for Max. 2 jobs, barely scraping by. She was tired, but she would not break. As she rounded the corner, rummaging through thoughts of bills and groceries, her gaze fell on a frail figure behind the grocery store, bent over a dumpster. It was Mr. Thompson, an elderly man she often saw shuffling through the streets, now desperate for scraps. Her heart raced. She had only saved a simple sandwich for dinner, the last of the bread. But the sight of him, searching in vain, gripped her with a moral dilemma. Could she sacrifice her one meal for his tiny glimmer of hope? She stood frozen, guilt puncturing her thoughts. Finally, she found her voice. "Mr. Thompson?" She called out. As he looked up, his eyes reflected not just hunger but a flicker of appreciation. Without a second's hesitation, she handed over her sandwich. It wasn't just food, it was a lifeline, one she needed to share. They struck up a friendship that wove threads of hope through her heavy burdens. His tales of grandeur and glimmer spoke of a life she yearned for, a reminder that dreams didn't have to be buried in reality. Yet, with each story he relayed, as he recalled swimming in wealth, a shadow loomed above them. Jordan, her colleague, relentless and smug, lurking with his disdain for her aspirations. Each jab he took made her doubt herself more, amplifying her insecurities. "Pointless dreaming, Angela," he'd sneer over the cubicles, "you're just a single mother. Know your place." The sting of his words lingered, entangling her heart in shame, making her question if her hard work was futile. Could she truly rise above this life for Max? Mr. Thompson was her light, but she felt embarrassed. Could she ever really be the woman he saw? As he encouraged her to seek training, to chase that elusive ambition, the fear of failing clamped her down like ice on her heart. Her chest tightened, a spinning cyclone of emotion as she grappled with her self-worth. Did she have what it took to break the chains of her current existence? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as she resolved to stand up to Jordan, life took a cruel twist. The revelation struck her like a thunderclap. Mr. Thompson was not just a lonely old man, but the estranged father of Mark Stevens, the town's powerful CEO. Throughout their connection, Mark had observed her tenacity from the shadows. The looming weight of this discovery twisted Angela's gut. Did she dare accept the opportunity that came with Mr. Thompson's connection? But how could she betray the man who found a warmth in her heart, sacrificing him for her dreams? The very thought made her skin crawl, yet the allure of the prosperous future sparkled tantalizingly close. As the snow continued to fall around her, muffling the outside world, Angela stood at a precipice of uncertainty, her choices colliding violently within her chest. Would she take the leap toward her dreams while grasping tightly to the threads of an unexpected kinship? Or would she find herself lost in the complexity of shattered loyalties? The tug-of-war within her spiraled tighter, leaving an unsettled ache, and the haunting question loomed, what would she risk to rise above the life she'd known? The glow of morning light filtered through the frost-covered windows, illuminating the remnants of a sleepless night. Angela sat wrapped in a tattered blanket on her couch, Max still asleep next to her, dreams untouched by the world's harsh realities. Yet, sleep eluded her. The dilemma she faced gnawed at her with increasing ferocity. Could she sacrifice a genuine bond for a shot at a better future? The revelation about Mr. Thompson had been a whirlwind, throwing her life into turmoil. She had always believed her actions were driven by a moral compass, but now, she questioned her integrity and the hidden motives behind her growing ambition. She needed to decide whether to remain loyal to him or seize a potential opportunity that could transform their lives. Angela reached for her phone, its screen illuminating her name in her contacts, Mark Stevens. Just the sight of it created a lump in her throat. A connection to the world she had only glimpsed through the stories of Mr. Thompson, a world filled with possibility and intricacies she had never dared to dream of. She tossed the phone aside, the temptation of connecting with the powerful CEO battling against the sheer weight of her conscience. Max stirred, drawing her attention. The innocence in his sleepy eyes reminded her of the reasons she fought every day. He deserved a future free from the scrabble of survival, a reality where dreams weren't just fantasies. With determination, she chose to focus on Max's needs, thinking less of her bitter confrontation with Jordan and more about building something stable for both of them. At work, the atmosphere was thick with the usual office politics, reeking of Jordan's disdain as he maneuvered through cubicles, comments sharp as daggers. As he approached her, Angela felt her pulse quicken. Preparing for another pointless meeting, Angela? Hoping for a miracle? He taunted, smugness radiating from him like a toxin. His words struck her, but instead of crumbling like before, a newfound resolve surged within her. She was no longer that uncertain woman who shrank back from challenge. The last few months had endowed her with a deeper understanding of her potential. "My dreams are not pointless," she replied steadily, locking her eyes with his. "And I suggest you stop underestimating them." The shock registered on Jordan's face was almost gratifying. As he scoffed and stalked away, Angela could feel the weight lift off her shoulders, a moment of clarity amidst chaos. Empowered, she embarked on the path Mr. Thompson had suggested: community training programs on management and leadership. The idea of furthering her education invigorated her, igniting latent aspirations she had buried deep. Each class offered new insights and skills. She absorbed everything like a sponge. With each evening spent studying, a flicker of hope ignited brighter in her heart. Through these sessions, she discovered a latent potential for leadership that surprised even her. She was not just capable but thriving, her confidence steadily growing. With supportive classmates around her, Angela felt the distance between her aspirations and reality begin to narrow. The world took on new shapes. The ones she had feared began to feel like roadmaps instead of barriers, yet, lurking in the shadows was the specter of her choice. What awaited her if she spoke to Mark? Did she dare summon the connection? The thought sent a jolt through her. It was both a question of ambition and morality. She could no longer linger at the crossroads without making a choice. As she returned home one freezing evening, Max adorned the living room with art projects scattered across the table. His laughter echoed like a melody, reinforcing her resolve. For him, she could embrace potential risks. She would not shatter the bond with Mr. Thompson but would explore an opportunity alongside it. The doorbell rang, her heart racing with the possibilities that awaited. Would it be Mr. Thompson, perhaps with a simple greeting or something more? Dread and anticipation entwined, each heartbeat echoed the question pressing upon her. Could she navigate the fine line between loyalty and ambition without losing herself? Her hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob, oblivious to the upheaval her decision would instigate. Ignoring the fear that surged through her mind, she took a deep breath and opened the door. Angela opened the door, and at first, she was met with an unfamiliar face: an elderly man, gaunt and shivering against the cold, bundled in layers that barely protected him from the winter air. His expression was one of desperation, but his eyes held a spark of determination. "Please, ma'am, I'm sorry to intrude, but he began, his voice trembling as he coughed. Something about his fragility struck a chord deep within her. "Just a moment," she replied, stepping aside and allowing him in, the immediate warmth of her home contrasting sharply with the harsh world outside. Max, sensing the unusual guest, appeared in the doorway of the living room, wide-eyed but calm. "Who is it, Mommy?" he asked, curiosity threading through his innocent tone. Angela knelt beside Max, the rift between her professional ambitions and her heart now more pronounced than ever. "This gentleman needs some help," she said softly, as she turned to the man, who introduced himself as Mr. Green. "I'm just looking for a meal, if you can spare it. I used to run a grocery store, but the market changed, and now." His voice faded into the background noise of her racing thoughts. Time slowed as she processed his request. The simple act of feeding a hungry man held far-reaching implications. "Excuse me a moment," she said, stepping into the kitchen. As she busied herself with bread and soup, a strange tension built inside of her. Here was a man in need, a palpable reminder of her own struggles. Yet, did this moment pull her further away from her ambitions or closer to understanding the very essence of what those ambitions were based upon? Returning with the steaming bowl, she placed it in front of Mr. Green at the dining table, where Max had settled, poised to witness a real act of kindness. The man's hands shook as he lifted the spoon, and she felt a tightness in her throat and chest as she saw him begin to eat. "It's good. Thank you," he murmured with a grateful smile that lit up his worn features. Across the table, Max leaned in close. "Why are you outside? Were you looking for friends?" he asked, innocent and unencumbered by the weight of the world. "More like a kind soul," Mr. Green replied, glancing up at Angela. "Just like you have here." The compliment hit her like a wave, the melding of her current self, the caring mother, and the aspirations of the professional world she longed to enter. After a few moments of silence, Angela's mind wandered back to Mark Stevens. The contrast of her current actions and the ambition she was edging closer to felt disheartening yet liberating. She had chosen to help rather than pursue, but was that decision merely a distraction from what lay ahead? As Mr. Green finished the last of the soup, he turned to Angela. "You know, kindness is sometimes the best investment," he said, the warmth in his voice steady and genuine. "You have the drive to go far, young lady. Don't let the world convince you otherwise." His words resonated, hinting at the journey ahead. That night, as they settled into their routine, Angela reflected on the unexpected encounter. She had fed a starving man, stayed rooted in her values, and in return, found a deeper understanding of her own ambitions. Yet, Max's laughter rang hollow against her anxieties. She knew the warmth of goodwill could clash sharply with the steel of the business world. As she tucked her son in, the thought of Mark Stevens crept back in, whispering through her mind like a siren call, a reminder of what choices loomed on the horizon. Then came the knock at the door again, but this time it sounded heavier, more deliberate. The thrill of unease fluttered within her. The moment of truth arrived. Could she truly balance the line between ambition and loyalty? With her heart pounding, she approached the door once more, an impending decision weighing on her like a storm cloud. Would it be someone offering new connections, or a confrontation that could reveal more about the past she was trying to escape? As Angela opened the door, her breath caught at the sight of a figure she knew too well. Mark Stevens stood there, his demeanor a mask of confidence that clashed with the vulnerability she had felt just moments before. His presence sent a ripple of unease through her, igniting the swirling doubts that had taken root during her reflection. "Angela," he greeted coolly, his voice as polished as his tailored suit. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything too important." She hesitated, caught in the storm of emotions swirling within her. The facade of professionalism he wore seemed to eclipse the good deed she had just performed. "Mark," she finally uttered, her voice shaky, "what brings you here?" "A chance to catch up," he replied, stepping into her home with the ease of someone who belonged. "I've been meaning to reach out, but I wanted to do it face to face." His eyes darted around, searching for anything out of place, and landed on Mr. Green, who was finishing his meal with what little dignity he could muster. A flash of recognition crossed Mark's face, but he masked it with a practiced smile. "I see you're hosting guests. Hope I'm not intruding on family matters." Angela's mind raced, a defensive instinct igniting within her. "We were just having dinner. Like I said, an unexpected visitor." "Of course. Well, I'd hate to break this moment," he smirked. "But I have an opportunity for you, and it's time-sensitive." Her heart sank. This reeked of the same relentless ambition she had been wrestling with, the path that threatened to overshadow her humanity. What kind of opportunity? She asked, her voice steady despite the chaotic turmoil inside. The company's launching a new project, and I can see you leading it, he explained. You've got the vision I'm looking for, and I think we can make a killing in the market, a real game changer. As he outlined the specifics, Angela felt her resolve waver. The prospect of finally stepping into the role she had long desired sent a shiver of excitement through her. Yet, Mr. Green's words echoed in her mind, urging her to pause. Kindness had its rewards, but could she afford to engage in a ruthless industry right now? Are you even slightly bothered by the lives we disrupt in pursuit of profits? She shot back impulsively, surprising even herself with the fierceness in her tone. Mark's expression shifted, and for a brief moment, the mask slipped. It's business, Angela. We can't save everyone. We have to think bigger, he replied, but the glint in his eyes morphed into annoyance. Her pulse quickened, mind racing through the weave of their professional relationship. Were they aligned, or had the ambition always created a divide? Maybe this was a mistake, she pressed, frustration boiling beneath her composure. What if I choose to stay away from projects that exploit desperation? Choose wisely, he warned, his voice lowering to a gravelly pitch. Opportunities like these don't come without a cost. Lose focus, and you risk losing everything. The heaviness of his words hung in the air, and Angela felt the weight of her decision coiling tightly around her chest. She could either accept the allure of advancement that tested her morals, or choose to defend the compassionate side she was uncovering, a side that could just as easily drown in the cutthroat waters of corporate ambition. Damar. Green's raspy voice interrupted her spiraling thoughts. She's right, you know. In a world obsessed with profits, don't let your heart get erased. Angela studied both men, the seasoned entrepreneur shrouded in ambition, and the man who had come seeking kindness. Her face flushed with the reality hanging before her. Could she carve her professional path while remaining true to her values? With a flick of resolve, she turned her gaze back to Mark. Maybe it's time I make my own choices, free from both your manipulations. She watched as Mark's expression darkened, realizing her decision could shatter the delicate balance they'd maintained. As the tension thickened, she sensed a looming reckoning between ambition and her newfound sense of purpose. What she didn't know was how this confrontation would ripple through her life, challenging her not just to prioritize her ambitions, but also to discover where her true strength lay in the storm ahead. Let us see what you're really made of, Angela, Mark smirked, turning to leave, the door swinging shut with a finality that echoed in her core. As his footsteps faded, anxiety gripped her like a vice. The true test awaited. Could she navigate this treacherous ground between personal integrity and professional ambition without losing herself? In that charged silence, she mulled over her next steps, a promise echoing in her mind. The time had come to define her own path, starting with her next move. Would she continue her pursuit while holding on to what truly mattered? The following days felt heavier than usual for Angela, each morning blending into the next as she wrestled with the implications of her confrontation with Mark. The air in her small apartment grew thick with the scent of dilemma, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee failing to mask the tension that seeped through from every corner of her life. As she sipped from her mug, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the window, traces of uncertainty painted under her eyes like an artist's unintentional smudge. Was she ready to lead a project that promised great rewards but also carried the risk of erasing her newfound principles? She had spent years building up her reputation, her humanity. Could she let it slip for the sake of ambition? Angela's phone buzzed, the screen illuminating with a notification from her mentor, Sarah. Let us meet. Need to discuss your career choices. The urgency in the message compelled her, and she could feel an unfamiliar excitement brewing beneath the layers of hesitance. Would Sarah help her clarify this whirlpool of mixed feelings? As Angela made her way to their favorite coffee shop, she rehearsed the questions she planned to ask, but doubt clenched her jaw. Would she reveal her struggles outright or guard her vulnerability with armor made of bravado? At the cafe, Sarah was already seated with a warm smile, her business casual attire reflecting her calm demeanor. Angela felt instantly at ease. It was the kind of anchor she desperately needed. After a few pleasantries, Sarah's expression shifted toward seriousness. Angela, I've noticed you're growing discontent with the industry. It isn't easy to balance ambition with ethics, is it? With a breath of relief, Angela launched into her story, every word cascading from her lips like fallen leaves, tangling and revealing. Mark came by, and he wants me to lead a project that feels exploitative. I'm torn between wanting to advance my career and staying true to who I am. Sarah leaned in, her gaze intent. Let us dissect this, shall we? What excites you about this project? What terrifies you? The questions echoed in her mind, and Angela hesitated. I want to make a difference, to innovate. But maybe I also crave acknowledgement. I've worked hard for this. Ambition isn't a crime, Angela. But you must navigate it wisely. Sarah's tone was gentle, yet firm. Have you considered how you can align your ambition with your values? The weight of that inquiry settled within her like a puzzle piece clicking into place. Angela took a moment, allowing her thoughts to unravel. Was there a way to innovate without compromising empathy? What if I could create a project that drives profit while uplifting the community? Is that possible? Absolutely, Sarah replied, a spark igniting in her eyes. Think about the strengths you possess. You've got a knack for understanding market needs and identifying gaps. It could be that this project doesn't have to be gray, it could be a brilliant shade of green for social consciousness. The exchange left Angela invigorated, her mind racing with new ideas. Instead of merely adopting the cutthroat mentality, what if she approached her work with a perspective that challenged the status quo? Suddenly, a glimmer of hope illuminated the murky waters she had been wading through. Can you feel the shift? Sarah asked, observing the transformation happening before her. Angela nodded slowly, her thoughts solidifying. Yes. I think I want to pitch an alternative to Mark to show him what a responsible project could look like. Maybe I can persuade him. Now you're talking, Sarah encouraged. But remember, they may resist change. Prepare for pushback. Angela took a sip of her coffee, her decision coursing through her like caffeine. She could feel her heart steadying, finding rhythm in a new direction, one that demanded courage but also appealed to her ethical core. As they continued the conversation, brainstorming possibilities into the late afternoon, the prospect of igniting meaningful change filled her with an energy she hadn't felt before. But beneath that excitement lay the knowledge that confronting Mark wouldn't be easy. Later that evening, as Angela left the cafe, determination illuminating her features, she suddenly wondered what Mark's reaction would be. She hadn't just made a decision, she armed herself with a plan, but she also risked exposing herself to rejection. Could she truly deliver a vision that catered not just to profitability, but to something greater? The moment of reckoning loomed ahead, and with each step, Angela felt herself getting closer to the edge of a significant confrontation. Would she be able to challenge Mark and reshape the narrative of her career, or would the weight of ambition drown her resolve? The morning sunshine streamed through the window, casting a warm glow over Angela's kitchen as she meticulously prepared for the day. Her mood was markedly enhanced, a powerful counterpoint to the uncertainty that had gripped her for days. She had crafted a presentation complete with visuals and data, employing every ounce of creativity and moral conviction she possessed. It was time to transform her vision into reality. Each step to the office felt calculated yet thrilling. The familiarity of the route brought a sense of calm, but she couldn't shake the tension curling in her stomach. Today wasn't just another meeting, it was the moment of truth. How would Mark respond to her proposal? Would he dismiss her ideas as naive, or might he see the potential for change? The duality of fear and excitement clashed within her, urging her on while threatening to hold her back. As she settled into her seat at the conference table, Angela arranged her papers with precision, every detail serving as a reminder of her purpose. Her colleagues filed in, a blend of enthusiasm and casual indifference filling the air. They shared pleasantries and exchanged looks that conveyed their own anticipations of the meeting, but Angela remained focused. This wasn't about them, it was about redefining her career path. When Mark entered, his presence commanded attention. Dressed in a tailored suit, he exuded confidence, the kind that made it easy for others to underestimate the strength of their own ideas. Angela swallowed hard as she prepared to speak, her voice steadier than her nerves would suggest. "Thank you all for coming today. I believe I've discovered a way to reframe the upcoming project, ensuring it not only meets our profitability goals but also aligns with ethical standards," she began, her tone unwavering despite the tremor in her hands. Mark nodded, intrigue mingling with his habitual skepticism. His gaze shifted between Angela and the slides projected on the wall, each image meticulously chosen. She highlighted local community engagement, sustainable practices, and long-term benefits, blending data with passionate arguments that transcended the usual corporate rhetoric. This was her moment, and she sought to captivate her audience with depth rather than surface-level justifications. As the presentation unfolded, Angela noticed a shift among her colleagues. The room, once filled with skeptical expressions, flickered with newfound interest. Mark's brow furrowed, she could see the wheels turning in his mind. Would he embrace this approach, or would the old guard's resistance rear its head? The critical moment came when she finished her presentation. "With your support, we could create a precedent for profitability intertwined with community uplift. We wouldn't just be leaders in our field, we'd be pioneers for change. Imagine the impact we could have." Silence hung in the air for a moment, heavy with implications. Mark regarded her thoughtfully, an inscrutable expression settling on his face. "This is ambitious, Angela. But what you're suggesting is a significant departure from our current strategy. Change is hard, and it's even harder for those at the top to accept it." Angela felt a mixture of relief and trepidation. Mark's acknowledgement was a step, but his words rang with caution. "Have you considered how we might approach stakeholders who may view this through a purely profit-focused lens?" he continued, eyes narrowing slightly. "I've anticipated pushback," Angela replied, her confidence sprouting like a determined flower pushing through concrete. "But I believe with the right messaging and evidence, we can shift perspectives. It's about showing them the value of not just profits but responsibility and sustainability." As Mark leaned back in his chair, contemplation haunted his features. "I see you've thought this through. But do you think the team will support this? Will they really buy into a long-term vision over short-term gains?" Her pulse quickened. This was at the turning point. "Mark, they will follow a leader who believes in something greater. We've all felt the frustrations of our industry's practices. I can lead them towards something meaningful. We can change our trajectory together." Mark's gaze turned piercing. "I'm not entirely convinced, but I'm willing to explore this idea further. You'll need to prepare for a lot of hard talk when you face the board." Angela nodded, a rush of adrenaline pulsing through her. This was the validation she needed, but it also underscored the weight of the challenge ahead. As they wrapped up the meeting, a mix of hope and trepidation sank into her bones. What if she was successful, but the hurdles of corporate inertia proved impossible to navigate? The question haunted her on her drive home, each passing streetlight mimicking her racing thoughts. A text message from Sarah popped up on her phone. "Thinking of you. How did it go? Mark is open to the idea, but it'll be tough. I'll need to prepare for the board." Angela replied, her fingers tapping the screen anxiously. "Good luck facing the real challenge then," Sarah texted back. Angela smiled, her resolve solidifying. The task ahead felt like climbing Everest, but with each stride, she was discovering parts of herself she had yet to tap into. Would she emerge victorious, or would the old habits of the company drag her back into complacency? As she pulled into her driveway, a thought struck her: what awaited her next? Would the board embrace this vision, or would she need to challenge them in ways she hadn't anticipated? The stakes were higher than ever, and the true battle was just beginning. Angela woke up the next morning to an unsettling calm. The harsh light filtered through her curtains, but it felt dimmer than before, reminiscent of the storm clouds gathering in her mind. She had spent the night drafting and redrafting her strategy for the board presentation, envisioning how best to articulate her vision. Each line she wrote felt like the beginning of a new chapter, yet the shadow of doubt lingered in the periphery. What if they rejected her ideas outright? Rising from bed, she caught her reflection in the bedroom mirror. The woman staring back at her was determined, but shadows of worry framed her face. She was stepping into uncharted territory. This was more than a proposal, it was a declaration of her evolution from an obedient cog in the corporate machine to a thought leader capable of steering that machine onto a new path. With that realization, a glimmer of confidence broke through the fog. She poured herself a cup of coffee, the rich aroma igniting a flicker of energy within her. This could either mark the downfall of her ambitions or the ascent to a leadership role she had only dreamed of. The growth she had experienced in the last week annoyed her with its speed. Angela felt like she was being thrust into a role she still struggled to see herself inhabiting. Dressed in a navy blazer that struck a balance between professionalism and strength, she felt the business-like demeanor that had eluded her previously start to settle in. She glanced at her notes one last time, their neat margins reinforcing her resolve. It was time to go head-to-head with the executives who had clung to outdated practices for too long. At the office, the atmosphere buzzed with whispers of her upcoming presentation. Curiosity battled with skepticism among her colleagues, but Angela remained centered on her purpose. She arrived at the boardroom early, needing a moment to breathe before the storm swept in. Peering out the window, she watched the bustling city below, consumed by its ceaseless rhythm. It was a reminder of the world outside their corporate bubble, an impetus for change. As each member of the board filtered in, Angela's heartbeat quickened. She recognized many faces, some filled with skepticism and some neutral, but one in particular sent a chill down her spine. Stan, the company's CFO. His reputation for being an unwavering traditionalist preceded him, known for rejecting ideas that strayed from profit margins and conventional wisdom without a moment's thought. The meeting commenced, and she presented her vision with ardor, weaving in narratives and statistics in equal measure. The board's expressions remained inscrutable, but Angela sensed Stan's resistance as he furrowed his brow, arms crossed. After her presentation concluded, silence painted the room once more. Mark broke it, initially showing support, challenging the board's fears with her evidence and potential impacts. But then Stan spoke up, questioning everything she had laid out, his tone dripping with condescension. "Angela, this all sounds nice in theory, but have you computed the cost implications, especially over the next fiscal year?" Her stomach nodded, but she pressed on. "I have factored that in, Stan. Initial investment in sustainable practices yields higher returns in the long run. This is not just a cost, it's an opportunity." "Opportunity?" he retorted, a smirk curling his lips. "We need facts, not ideologies." Angela felt her resolve tremble for a moment, but with a deep breath, she tapped into the determination that had surged within her the previous night. This was about more than the immediate pushback, it was about navigating through bias and working for something meaningful. "I believe that adopting these practices could not only enhance our corporate image but also reposition us as trailblazers in our sector," she said, her voice now steadier. The board's murmurs grew louder, the skepticism fraught with uncertainty. As Mark joined in the discussion, backing Angela, she sensed a pivot forming around her. Stan leaned back, eyes sharp. "Perhaps you're right, but let us test this theory with numbers. Prepare a detailed breakdown before we even consider moving forward." Disappointment washed over her momentarily. Yet, it dawned on her that this was the challenge. She needed a chance to solidify her proposed strategies with even more determination. Would she rise to the occasion and weave her vision into a plan backed by concrete numbers? The meeting adjourned without a definitive resolution, leaving Angela's heart both heavy and hopeful. This was her chance not only to prove her competence but also to shape the future of her company. As Mark nodded in agreement with her after the meeting, she felt emboldened. "You've got the opportunity to make your mark, Angela," he urged, prompting her to see that this was merely a starting point. With newfound resolve, she returned home, a plan forming in the back of her mind. Yet, the question loomed large: How would she turn the board's hesitations into actionable change, showcasing the power of her proposals in a landscape governed by numbers? Each hurdle now came with a promise of profound growth, but it would demand everything she had. Angela spent the night delving deep into spreadsheets and projections, driven by an intensity that sometimes bordered on obsession. Her laptop became a portal through which she could visualize her future, the looming numbers alive with potential. She knew the stakes were high. Each column represented not just dollars and cents but pathways to influence and recognition within the company. As the morning light crept through her window, she felt oddly rejuvenated. Fueled by caffeine and adrenaline, she was unprepared for the reality of immersing herself in statistical analyses for hours on end. The night air had given her clarity. She began to see her ideas less as lofty ideals and more as practical solutions that required precise articulation. With a brisk shower and a change into a structured outfit, Angela felt an invigorating shift. Today wasn't merely about facing the board again, it was about reclaiming the narrative. She was determined to illustrate how sustainable practices could bolster the company's financial standing while securing its public image. Confidence coursed through her. She wasn't hiding behind the veil of the corporate machine anymore. In the office, the buzz surrounding her presentation had shifted from curiosity to a more palpable anticipation. This was her moment to redefine not just the company strategy but her identity within the organization. When she entered her workspace, she was greeted with affirming nods from colleagues. Each gesture fueled her belief in the validity of her approach. She took it all in, recognizing that these interactions weren't merely comforting, they were indicative of a growing collective consciousness around innovation amidst her peers. The conference room felt different today. The air was charged, and as she set up her materials, she could feel the weight of the board's scrutiny lingering in the atmosphere. Stan was already there, furrowing his brow as he flipped through her notes. It was a territorial act that both irritated and motivated her. She presented to the board with a newly forged assurance. Crystalled plans emerged from her mouth, sprinkled with facts and resonant stories demonstrating the broader outcomes of adopting her strategies. Investing in sustainable practices isn't just a trend, it's an investment in our longevity, she declared, scanning the room for engagement but quickly noticing the skepticism weighing heavily on Stan's expression. Those ideas sound well-meaning, but where's the empirical data? He interrupted, his voice laced with condescension. Statistics show that 70% of companies implementing sustainable methods saw an increase in profitability within 3 years. If we are looking to future-proof our structure, this is the way forward, Angela countered, her voice gaining an edge as she articulated the figures. Yet, Stan remained unconvinced, dismissing the abstraction, but isn't that all just potential rather than guaranteed results? For a moment, Angela's resolve wavered. Here she was with her meticulously researched data, but Stan represented a mindset she had fought so hard to challenge. It felt like an emotional punch. Still, she gathered herself, recalling her newfound clarity. Stan, the calculated risk here leads to multiples in value. This is indeed an opportunity to grasp. A commitment today can translate to market leadership tomorrow. Her own words caught her. She spoke not just of numbers but of future vision and company identity. Yet again, silence fell, brewing a conflict within her. Doubt whispered its familiar taunts, yet she sensed the room was beginning to pivot. Mark joined the dialogue, underscoring her points with his own endorsements. Stan, feeling cornered, shifted tactics. Fine, but this breakdown needs to be rigorous. Detail every aspect of how these investments will yield results, all the financial risk mitigated. A detail-oriented plan is on its way, Angela replied, nearly trembling with excitement. What began with doubt had transformed into a challenge, one that would allow her to consolidate her targets into strategic financial plans. The meeting concluded, leaving Angela with a fusion of satisfaction and urgency. She had not only defended her ideas but had also created an opportunity to solidify her standing with tangible metrics. Homeward bound, Angela's heart raced with what lay ahead. What revelations and strategies would she uncover as she poured herself into the numbers, and how might they shape her vision moving forward? The prospect of translating this into something actionable fueled her determination. She felt the urgency swelling within her, a calling urging her to discover how fully she could embrace this role that felt increasingly promising. An unexpected message pinged on her phone, a reminder of the board's next quarterly meeting. She understood then, this journey was not just about her proposal, but a relentless quest toward leadership that could define her legacy. The question now was, could she rise to the financial challenge ahead and uncover even deeper truths about her capabilities? The next morning arrived with an air of palpable urgency surrounding Angela. She was enveloped in the chaos of her thoughts, cycling through ideas and strategies, apprehensive yet driven. The board meeting had ignited a fire within her, one that sparked with each data entry and graph analysis. As the sun ascended, illuminating her workspace, her resolve solidified. With a determined flick of her wrist, she gathered her notes, ready to transform her proposal into an actionable roadmap. Each observation gleaned from the previous meeting reverberated in her mind, guiding her focus toward the core element, persuasion through rigorous detail. She understood now that clarity would be her most potent weapon in the battle to sway the dissenters. Angela dove into research, seeking empirical evidence that would raise her proposal's credibility. Hours drained into a symphony of data points and projections, each statistic tightening her narrative. She crafted scenarios highlighting the financial windfall a commitment to sustainability could elicit, peppered with case studies that showcased successful transitions. The one question that echoed in her mind was no longer about the viability of her ideas, but whether she could outwit Stan's cynicism with cold, hard facts. As the clock inched closer to the deadline, Angela felt the mental gears shifting. Each calculation brought to light her own evolving perception of leadership. She wasn't just aiming to convince the board, she was preparing for a confrontation that demanded both vulnerability and strength. She could almost sense the impending duality, the businesswoman in her weighed against the person who believed in her cause. An hour later, her phone buzzed with another unexpected message. It was Mark, expressing an eagerness to collaborate further before the next meeting. His encouragement felt like kindling to her diminishing fears. Perhaps she could use this partnership strategically, by drawing on his experience while still imprinting her vision on their collective presentation. Mark, I was thinking, she began in her reply, if we could specify forecasts showing how these investments yield returns in ways beyond just numbers, like enhanced brand loyalty, we might engage the board on emotional grounds too. His immediate response cheered her, absolutely. Let's tee up some examples. We can balance quantitative rigor with qualitative storytelling. That collaboration crystallized her sense of purpose. Working with Mark, she restructured her presentation. He suggested framing her ideas around a narrative that connected with the board's aspirations, not merely profitability but positioning as industry leaders and innovators. As they worked into the evening, a sense of camaraderie blossomed. Mark's insights shone alongside her analytical prowess, creating a bond of mutual respect that fortified Angela's belief in her mission. With each exchange, she found herself stepping further away from self-doubt. She was no longer just pitching a plan, she was crafting a vision rooted in values she'd grown to embody fiercely. Suddenly, the golden hour cast a warm glow through the office windows, capturing her reflection amidst the haze of spreadsheets and post-it notes. Angela met her own gaze and felt the weight of her journey washing over her. She realized this wasn't just about proving Stan wrong, it was an opportunity to mold her identity within the company, merging her ideals with their corporate objectives. As the night deepened, Angela leaned back in her chair, filled with a mixture of exhilaration and anxiety. Tomorrow would be pivotal, a trial by fire before the board that could dramatically alter her trajectory. Could she meld the numbers with her convictions to secure her stance for the future? The thrill of the challenge coursed through her. The time had come to face not only her colleagues' apprehensions but fortify her place as a leader with vision. Would the board be ready to embrace the shift she was advocating, or would this encounter push her back into the shadows, with the stakes looming? Ahead, Angela's heart raced, sparking questions that could redefine the path forward. What would happen when she revealed her findings, and could her courage and advocacy be enough to ignite a fundamental change? The air was electric with anticipation as Angela walked into the boardroom the next morning. With her meticulously crafted presentation in hand, she could feel the weight of her journey culminating in this moment. Each statistic was armed with justification, poised to surface a new narrative that challenged the status quo. This was her opportunity to redefine not just her career but the very ethos of the organization she had long been a part of. As the room filled with board members, Angela took a deep breath, recalling every step that had led her here. The early morning meetings with Mr. Thompson, the countless nights spent working alongside Max while envisioning a future steeped in aspiration, the collaborative momentum she had built with Mark, all of these threads interwove into her resilience. They were the scaffolding of her newfound confidence, building her into a leader who could advocate for change. Glimmers of uncertainty flashed across some of the board members' faces as they settled in. Stan sat across the table, his expression sharp, a wolf poised for a fight. Angela recalled their previous encounters, the disdain that had dripped from his words, the way he had belittled her ambitions. But today felt different. Today, she was ready to face him. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time," Angela began, her tone steady and resolute. She navigated through her presentation with ease, each slide unveiling layers of opportunity that transcended traditional profits. She emphasized the need for the company to pivot toward sustainability, not merely as a corporate responsibility but as a strategic advantage. Investing in sustainable practices is not just a trend, it's a necessity. Companies that align themselves with social responsibility report not only increased profitability but also a stronger brand loyalty. As she articulated her points, Angela watched as the board's skepticism began dissolving into intrigue. Stan's brows furrowed as she highlighted case studies of successful transformations, illustrating how mindful strategies resulted in both financial and reputational gains. For the first time, she saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes, an acknowledgement that maybe her perspective could hold water. "Angela, you make some valid points," Mark interjected, nodding in agreement. "We need to consider the long-term implications of this shift." I believe her vision could align perfectly with our goals as an innovative leader in the market. The room hummed with energy, the tides beginning to shift beneath her very feet. Angela pressed on, channeling all the passion she had cultivated throughout her journey. "This isn't just a business initiative, it's a moral imperative. A commitment today will set us apart, drawing an engaged consumer base that values ethics alongside profitability." "Wow. You really believe in this, don't you?" Stan challenged, his skepticism resurfacing but tempered by a hint of respect. "But we have to be realistic. How do you propose we measure success? We need quantifiable metrics." "Excellent question, Stan," Angela responded, her mind racing with calculations that had consumed her days and nights. "We'll conduct a phased approach, utilizing KPIs related to customer engagement, brand perception, and financial health. Plus, I've already sketched out a plan that aligns our investments with measurable outcomes." The board buzzed with murmurs, excitement tinged with apprehension. Angela could sense the tide turning, the atmosphere felt electric. After fielding questions, Stan finally leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression eclipsing his previous skepticism. "All right, let us see this plan laid out step by step. If we embrace this direction, we need an exhaustive framework." Her heart soared. This was the pivotal moment she had fought so hard to seize. "Absolutely. I'll prepare the detailed breakdown for our follow-up meeting, and I appreciate your willingness to consider it." In that instant, a spotlight of recognition illuminated Angela, a validation of her authenticity and effort. She had achieved more than combating Stan's resistance. She had carved out her position as a leader who could navigate complexities while remaining true to her values. As she left the boardroom, a wave of elation washed over her. It wasn't just that she had challenged the norm, she had wrapped her ambitions in a purpose that resonated deeply with her core principles. This marked an evolution, both personally and professionally. At home later that evening, she gathered Max in her arms, watching his eyes light up as they celebrated the small victories of the day. "We're going to do great things together, buddy," she whispered into his hair, her heart swelling with pride. She saved a slice of warmth at her core, illuminating a path where her dreams and her reality could coalesce. Now, she, mustering her determination, was ready to rise while ensuring no one, including Mr. Thompson, was left behind. Angela had achieved a profound transformation, built on the foundations of courage, integrity, and advocacy. She had finally proved to herself and her detractors that a woman's ambition could thrive alongside compassion. This was a new dawn, not just for her career but for the entire company. She had definitively stepped into her power, a champion of change ready to lead with heart. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below your reactions and theories about this incredible ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to show the power of personal transformation.